Trust Act once and for all. My name is Crisalice de los Santos, and I am We Are CASA's Baltimore Central Maryland Director, and I stand in front of you here today filled with pride, proud for our community who fought relentless for more than a decade to make this day happen. I am proud of the mothers and the children who share their story and who refuse to stay silent, even though being silent was a lot easier. I am proud of the advocate, of the organizers, of the faith leaders who never gave up. I am proud of Senate President Ferguson, Chairman Smith, our bill sponsor, Lamb, and every single legislator standing with us in this fight. And I know that the House will do the same, especially under the leadership of La Señora Presidenta de la Cámara. Because of legislators like them, today we are on the right side of history. Because we all know that when parents are afraid to drive their children to school, when workers are afraid to report to work and to report theft, when victims are afraid to call 911, that is not public safety. And Maryland's here to say no more. That's right. When sheriff's angry about the 287G ban, they promised to skirt despite the fact that every 4 and 5 people deported by ICE have 0 criminal record. That is not public safety, that is racial cleansing. Today, Maryland chooses safety rooted in trust. Today, Maryland chooses dignity. Today, Maryland chooses families. So when I say Community Trust Act, you say now. Community Trust Act. No. Community Trust Act. No. Community Trust Act. No. When I say immigrant rights, you say now. Immigrant rights. No. Immigrant rights. No. Immigrant rights. No. When? No. When? No. When? No. Se puede? Sí se puede. The Community Trust Act is very simple. It says, number 1, you can't hold our immigrant neighbors and friends for ICE against the Constitution. And number 2, law enforcement cannot funnel people into ICE deportation machine. Let me make it clear to all of you, the bill boils down into one thing: whether or not the state of Maryland is going to participate in the Trump agenda. Across Maryland today, counties are calling up on ICE, even at this very moment, telling them, hey, come pick up and disappear local residents. The Senate is saying not in our watch, and we hope the House does the same quickly. 2 weeks ago, I saw many of you at the steps of the Supreme Court defending the 14th Amendment. And today we are here in Annapolis protecting the 4th Amendment. I want to thank the Senate President and his entire team for making this happen. And now I want to invite up a relentless leader, someone who has seen the effects of this immigration policies, Mohamed, our CASA member 2.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mohamed Al-Ghali. I was born and raised right here in Maryland. I'm the proud son of an immigrant from Sierra Leone and a member of We Are CASA. A few days ago, I stood at a rally in this very same spot speaking about why the Community Trust Act isn't just policy to me, it's personal. I spoke about my life, about my family, about what it means to grow up here in Maryland, believing this is home, and still having that sense of safety taken away from me. At that rally, I spoke about my mother, Rabiatu Kuyate, and shared her story, how she was unjustly detained and deported. Like so many families across the state who have been torn apart by immigration enforcement, the idea that any local or state agency would collaborate in that system is not only enraging, it is deeply painful. Because that's not the Maryland I know, that's not the Maryland I was raised in, and that's not the Maryland our families deserve. But today we stand in a different moment. Because of the advocacy and courage of impacted families, organizers, young people, and community members, people who showed up, people who spoke out, who refused to be ignored, the Community Trust Act is moving forward. This moment belongs to the people. And while we recognize progress, we are clear about what comes next. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Chairman Smith. Thank you, Senator Lamb. And thank you, everyone here today who is about to vote to pass this bill in a few hours. I know that because we got this done, we will get it done in the House. Yes. And we will get it done at the governor's desk because our families cannot afford anything less. I want to close by lifting up every Maryland resident who has been detained or deported, including my mother. To all of you, and to the families still waiting, still fighting, still hoping to be united, this moment is for you. And I carry one thought with me today. We are one step closer to ensuring that sons and daughters like me won't have to tell stories like mine. Today is a good day for immigrant families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your leadership. And now it's my pleasure to invite up the Senate President, Bill Ferguson.
Good afternoon. It is a beautiful day to make progress on what is a basic Maryland right. The bedrock of democracy is justice and due process. What we know is that what we've seen from this Trump administration is repeated lawlessness and a disrespect for humankind. Here in Maryland, that is not the path we take. I'm so pleased to stand with advocates here today, my colleagues, Senator Lamb, and soon to bring up Chair Smith, for the incredible efforts of fighting for what is right here in the state of Maryland. This product of moving this bill forward, of moving the Trust Act forward, was weeks of negotiation, bringing all parties to the table to work through complicated questions to make sure that we could stand up for our values. We have 2 days left in session, and so it may feel like it's close to the end. But the bottom line is deadlines produce results. And what we were able to do today and move through the Senate through second reader, in which we will vote on tonight to make sure that the House has both Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to get it across the finish line, is a product of enormously hard work by so many folks. I just want to thank CASA, ACLU, the Public Defender's Office, and to a number of the Maryland law enforcement officials who said that treating people with dignity and respect is what enhances public safety. This is about trust. This is about making sure that every single member of our community, every neighbor, believes that the law enforcement officials are for them as well. Our system is about justice, and it's making sure that when we have due process, that is when American values are truly on display. And so I am so proud of my Senate colleagues who are moving forward this piece of legislation today. I look forward to the House moving quickly in the next few days and the governor signing the bill in the next few weeks. I want to thank each and every person for being here today. Thank you for your continued advocacy. Thank you for fighting for what is right. I see Odette Ramos, Councilwoman Ramos, I want to thank you for being here as well. This is a very important time in Maryland history and in American history, and it is truly a moment to say where people stand. And today I am so proud of where the Senate stood. With that, I want to thank and bring up the chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee, who was just an absolute stalwart, a champion on the floor today, thoughtful, purposeful, and helped to move the debate exactly how it was, with a focus on justice and on people. I'd like to bring up my colleague, Chairman Will Smith.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. You all heard enough from me today, but I do want to reiterate what the Senate President said, that when we treat everyone with dignity, when we treat everyone equally under the color of the law, when we adhere to our constitutional values, we live up to our credo as the United States of America. So I want to say thank you for all of the work that went into the debate today and the material that you have before you that we're going to vote on in just a few hours. But most importantly, I want to say thank you to all of the people that have come down here for years advocating for change. You took time away from work, took time away from your families, took time away from your other responsibilities to come down here and advocate and petition your government for change. And this moment shows you how powerful your voices are. And I know that sometimes with all that's going on all throughout the nation, it feels a little bit hopeless, and it feels like your voice doesn't matter. It feels like you go to work every day, you do everything you can to be a good person, and it doesn't matter. Today's result shows you that it does matter, and that when you come down, you put yourself together, you can petition your government change, you can really make a positive change. So with that, that was my number one thing. I want to also thank the Office of the Public Defender, CASA Maryland, ACLU, Progressive Maryland I see out there, folks that have worked together for years with legislators to make things happen. With that, I'm going to turn it over to is it Senator Lamb or Senator Wallstreicher? Who am I turning it over to? Then we'll go to Vice Chair Wallstreicher, and then we'll go to Senator Lamb. But thank you all very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Today's an important day. The bill is not past the finish line yet, but we're going to keep moving it forward and get it on the governor's desk. But it's an important day because today the Maryland State Senate stood up for our Constitution. Today, the Maryland State Senate stood up and said what ICE is doing in our community is unacceptable. What this president is doing in our country is unacceptable. And today's legislation shows that the Maryland State Senate is fighting back. I want to thank the chairman for his leadership in pushing this bill forward. I want to thank the Senate president, who was critical in making sure that the provisions of this bill protect our citizens while ensuring that our community remains safe. Lastly, let me thank the folks behind me, my good friends from CASA, from the ACLU, and let me give a huge shout out to our brothers and sisters in labor who join us here today. We're going to put this on the governor's desk. Let me introduce the author of the bill, the sponsor of the bill, my colleague, Senator Clarence Lamb.
All right, well, thank you. It's great to be here on this Friday, beautiful Friday afternoon, beautiful for so many ways and reasons. I want to also acknowledge and thank the efforts of so many. I know Chairman Smith is still over there. He just endured hours of amendments and debate on the floor, is supported by his vice chair, Senator Wallstreicher. We could not have done this and gotten this to this far without their support and their efforts to advance this, and also want to thank and acknowledge our Senate President for his leadership as well to bring this to the floor at this hour, because the importance of this bill is so great. And also thank my colleague from the House, our House sponsor, Delegate Phillips, and our Speaker as well for their leadership here. I want to commend the General Assembly and the Governor for signing the 287G ban earlier this year. It was hard fought, it was important, and it was necessary to prohibit collaboration between state and local law enforcement and ICE. That our law enforcement should focus on enforcing state and local laws, not serving as an extension of ICE in enforcing federal immigration laws. We passed that ban on 287G agreements early during session with the leadership of Senate President Ferguson, and then heard from some local sheriffs in certain counties that immediately turned around and said that they were going to circumvent the new 287G agreement that we had in place by exploiting a loophole that allows them to informally contact ICE for people that might be arrested or booked in our local jails and prisons. And let me be clear, our intent in passing the 287G ban was to block local jurisdictions from collaborating with ICE. It runs counter to the spirit and intent of our earlier law for these local sheriffs and counties to turn around and immediately find a workaround to what we just passed. And that's why this Community Trust Act is so incredibly important and what we're trying to address here. We are trying to close a loophole that was made glaringly clear after we passed the 287G ban by establishing a reasonable process and protections to limit communication and informal interaction between local law enforcement and counties and ICE. We believe that these basic protections in the Community Trust Act are important in upholding our values as a state and making the spirit of Maryland a safe, and in the spirit of making Maryland a safe and inclusive community. The opponents have argued that this will make us less safe. And let me be unambiguous. I do not believe that the Community Trust Act will make our communities less safe. In fact, I think it will make Maryland more safe. The passage of this bill will restore the trust that our communities have in their local law enforcement and in their counties, that residents will not be afraid of reporting incidents and calling their local law enforcement, that residents will not be afraid of interactions with local police, and that ultimately we as a state believe that our local jails and prisons should not be used as the front door to ICE's deportation machines. And let me say that again. The goal was to ensure that jails are not the front door to the federal government's chaotic and unlawful deportation pipeline that deports Marylanders to foreign prisons with no due process. The state should have basic protections in place to prevent Marylanders from being arrested, detained, and potentially deported by ICE without due process, and that's not an exaggeration or a hypothetical, not of the ICE of today, of what we've seen in Minneapolis and so many areas around the country. That risk is very real, and the threat is not empty. It's a risk that Marylanders in some jurisdictions are facing every single day, and that's why we have fought so hard to pass the Community Trust Act to establish those basic and reasonable protections. So I'm incredibly proud of the work that this body, the Senate of Maryland, has done to stand up for our immigrant community time after time. I'd like to thank CASA, the ACLU, our friends in labor, Office of Public Defenders, Progressive Maryland, so many of the stakeholders that are here behind us, and organizations that made their voices heard loudly over the last 3 months and even just a few days ago. I also want to thank the work of the Senate Committee, Judicial Proceedings, the support of our Senate colleague, and again, the leadership to get this across the finish line. This is incredibly important for our community and our state, and a real advancement as a companion to the 287G that we passed, 287G ban that we passed earlier this session. Thank you so much. Let me turn it over to our folks in CASA and have other speakers come up as well.
Thank you all so much for your leadership. And now I want to invite up another fierce leader, Prince George County President, Council President, Crystal Oriana.
Today is a good day. And I want to thank and echo the sentiments of every single person that fought, not just today, but for years, to make sure that our immigrant brothers and sisters had a voice here in Maryland. The reality is that there's this conversation about lawlessness, but the only lawlessness I see is this administration and their thugs and ICE that are parading themselves as if they are law enforcement across this country. And I want to thank the fearless leaders of the Senate, because in this day and age, it might be hard to fight back, because it's a real conscious decision you have to make. They're threatening our jurisdictions left and right if we take any measure of defense. And so I thank them for being courageous and stepping forward and saying, not on my watch will I allow this to happen to Maryland residents. The reality is that we are in a state that we have never seen before. And this is a moral war that is happening across this country. There are going to be cases. We know that they are going to fight every decision that we make. But what we are saying is that the residents of our state are more important. What we are saying is that the rule of law and the Constitution still means something here in Maryland. What we are saying is that we are not going to allow this administration to terrorize us. We've seen what ICE has done on the streets in other places, and we're not going to allow someone to die. That's not an exaggeration. People have been buried on the streets for protecting and standing up for their neighbors. And what we are saying, we are going to protect the residents of Prince George's County. And that includes the immigrants that have come to this country, that made it beautiful, like my father that immigrated from Kenya. We are going to make sure that you have a space here in Maryland. So as this president says you are not welcome, we say home is here in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you so much. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. And now it's my pleasure to invite the Vice President of SEIU 32BJ, Jaime Contreras.
¡Sí se puede! First of all, thank you, CASA,
for leading this effort, and thank you to the community for being here, others who have been behind this for, 10 years now? I also want to thank the Senate President, Chairman Smith, and of course, Senator Lamb for leading this. Thank you so much for doing this. So my name is Jaime Contreras. I'm the Executive Vice President for SEIU 32 BJ. Our union represents 190,000 members throughout the East Coast, 22,000 in this area, more than half of them who live and work and play in the state of Maryland. 65% of them which are immigrants who come from 60 different countries and speak 25 different languages. We are America. What's happening with the immigrant communities in America is un-American. It's inhumane. It's illegal. It's wrong. And it's racist. But that's nothing new in this country, right? I personally came here undocumented in 1988. My parents brought me here. I was a teenager during the bloody civil war in El Salvador. I didn't have a choice. They brought me here. I'm a citizen. I served in the United States military. I got my college degree, and I serve my community. Those are the type of people that this administration is targeting. Make no mistake about that. This is why we're lucky in Maryland to have champions at the local and state level to counterattack what this administration is doing to our community. Today, we have done it unapologetically and with conviction. Why? Because it's the right thing to do and because we want to be on the right side of history. We need to send a clear message to this administration and their cronies that the ones that are not welcome here is ICE and those people who are terrorizing our communities, immigrants, are welcome in the state of Maryland. So I know there's one more procedural thing that we gotta go through, but I know we're gonna get this thing done today, right? ¡Se puede! ¡Se puede! Briefly in Spanish, hoy es un día histórico para nuestra comunidad. Hoy se le está diciendo a Trump y a la administración y a los terroristas de ICE que aterrorizan nuestras comunidades, que los que no son bienvenidos en el estado de Maryland es ICE y Trump. Los inmigrantes sí somos bienvenidos. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Jaime. And now it's my honor to invite up Stephanie Wolf from the Office of the Public Defender, Immigration Services.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am so relieved as a public defender because of the bravery of the Senate this afternoon. We are well on our way to a world where I will not have to see my clients handed over to ICE after they are found not guilty of a criminal charge. I will not have to see my clients handed over to ICE after their charges are dismissed because the state realized that they had made a mistake. I will not have to see my clients handed over to ICE and separated from their families on the basis of traffic offenses and disorderly conduct charges. That is happening. Up to today, that is happening in Maryland, across the state. It tells our immigrant communities that they are not safe interacting with law enforcement. It tells our neighbors that any misunderstanding with a police officer or with a neighbor who can file a citizen's complaint could result in them being deported, even if the legal system, through due process, which we work so hard to uphold, comes to the right decision that they didn't commit any crime. They're still being handed over, and the relief that I feel to know that our representatives in the Senate are not going to stand for that anymore is indescribable. I thank CASA and the ACLU. I thank Chairman Smith for his steadfast, repeated defenses of due process against multiple attacks. Senator Lamb, thank you for supporting this legislation before it was popular. And thanks to Senate President Ferguson, without whom we could not have made it this far. We are excited to see what the House will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I also want to recognize Councilwoman Ramos for being with us and leading this fight at the local level and always showing up here at the state level to make sure that our Baltimore City folks also have the rights and for sponsoring the bill in Baltimore City. If you have come to Annapolis to rally, to lobby, to pass this bill, please make some noise. Si has venido hasta Annapolis a dar testimonio, a manifestarte o a abogar para que este proyecto de ley avance, haga un poco de bulla. This victory belongs to the people. It belongs to the families who have shared their pain to make sure that no other families have to go through it. It belongs to 10-year-old Liliana, who joined this movement at an age where the only thing that she should have to worry about is passing the 4th grade. We will be back to pass this bill in the House. We will be back to see our governor sign this bill. And we will be back to make sure that the rights and the dignity of our communities are always lifted front and center. Let this be a message beyond Maryland. When communities are brave, when communities come together, change is possible. Se pudo!
¡Sí se pudo!
Se pudo!
¡Sí se pudo!
Thanks, everyone.
¿Una foto?
I almost don't want to end it because it was.